My name is Chelly Herren, and I run the Highland Group in Prescott, Arizona. We are a team of about 15 agents. We have about 5 admin on the team, and we're doing around 375 transactions a year. I've been in a management role for the team since 2000, and we really sort of came up with a way to, when I came into this role, I talked with our TCs about how they were managing transactions, and I looked at their really great, pretty bulletproof checklist, and I worked with them to get their checklist added to Follow Up Boss, because I felt like there could be a better way where we weren't using so many different systems to manage transactions. And that pretty much birthed this way that I'm going to show you today to manage transactions in Follow Up Boss. It's been hugely successful for our team. We've gone on to coordinate upwards of 2,000 transactions this way now. We've been doing it this way for about 4 years. And I'm going to show you today what the benefits are, what some of the fundamentals are of that system, and walk you through how to get yours set up just the same way. So I'm going to share my screen. If anyone from Key is on and is there any way to mute when people get added so it doesn't keep dinging for the whole presentation? I don't know if you're able to do that, but it would be amazing if you could. Thank you. Okay, so I am, like I said, I gave you a quick overview of who I am. And what I found is that when people who have asked me about how we set this up come to talk to me and are like, hey, I really need some help. I want to manage transactions the way that you are. They are constantly saying things like they've got a bunch of different spreadsheets that they're using to manage transactions. Maybe they're using Trello, or they're using a third-party software, something like SkySlope, or there's a number of different ones out there. Paperless Pipeline is one that I hear a lot. So they're constantly missing deadlines. They've got a whole bunch of data inside their heads. Maybe they're getting to a point in their business where they've gotten to a certain number of transactions where they want to get some transactional help, and they're trying to impart or train their checklist to an admin or someone who can help them on their team to manage transactions. Or sometimes it's just a high-producing solo agent who is trying to do all these things themselves and trying to keep track of 5 different transactions and multiple different deadlines for contracts, and just feeling really overwhelmed. So if you have no systems, or you have a system that you're using that either might be overkill for you, or might be something that you just feel like you're having to get in and out of several different sort of closed systems and they're not working together, using something like this build inside of Follow Up Boss could be a really perfect option for you. If you guys would put into the chat what you're currently using for transaction coordination, that would be fantastic. And again, I will try to hit on some of the things that might be beneficial or might be comparable to what your current system is as you think about implementing this. So really what my team experienced when we took their checklist and put it into Follow Up Boss was a number of different things. I mean, we obviously operate a team, but this is not just for teams. This is for agents who are just running their own business and working really hard to keep 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 10 deals going at a time. So really, this is very scalable. Having all the details of the deal and the timelines and the client communication in one place has been an incredible lift for us. We don't have to send text messages on the side back and forth and tons of emails back and forth for updates. Everyone is on the same page. The client emails are drafted and ready to go. We do have a human review those emails. So our system the system that I've built is very low on automation, in the sense that a lot of the details from the transaction pull into an email template. So there's a lot less data entry, a lot less typing. But I still really believe in human review of a transactional template, because automation can get really crazy And before you know it, you're sending a congrats on closing email, and a deal is really delayed because of a last minute lender issue. So I really believe in having the ability to have time-saving tips and tricks inside your follow-up boss that then can translate to you still being able to review that email before it goes out to your client and making you look good instead of making you look like you had a misstep or your staff had a misstep. Team knows exactly what to do and when. You can assign the tasks that you set up in Follow-Up Boss to different people on your team or a virtual assistant, or if you're a solo that's running this system, you can have all of your tasks really well organized so that you know exactly when things are due, get reminders when certain tasks pop up for you to take care of. But then also if you find yourself with a bit of idle time to just go in and catch up your transactions or do paperwork, you know exactly what you need to do. And if you have a staff member helping you, same thing. And then everything's just in Follow-Up Boss. That's huge game changer for us. We have the ability to travel around in our cars and out at showing appointments and things like that. And on our phone, we have access to all the data that I'll show you how you can build into your transaction management system inside of Follow-Up Boss. So some other things that people are just finding are huge benefits of a system like this is you have a visual representation of your buyer and seller pipelines. I'll show you that in a minute when I get into an actual overview of how we have things set up. There's task reminders, like I said, where you can be reminded at a certain day at a certain time. You can remind your agent at a certain day at a certain time to get something done, like an inspection report that's due or a contract timeline. Those all populate right to your Google Calendar if you're using an integrated calendar with Follow-Up Boss. You can increase your efficiency and lower your stress overall just because, again, everything's in one place and you're not trying to figure out how to log in and log out of different systems. Communication with clients is hugely improved, especially within your team. Agents are able to see what TCs have taken care of for admins or vice versa. If you're an agent out in the field and you're thinking to yourself, I wonder if my TC was able to send those documents over for signature or whatever the situation is, you've got all of that information at your fingertips. Saving hours on every deal has been a huge benefit to us. I mean, we've been able to reduce our time frame on deals by quite a bit. Each checklist, we have huge time saving opportunities within those. And then just keeping everything, like I said, systematized in one place and mobile friendly has been really incredible for us. Everything in the system that I will go in and show you in just a moment really is going to center around pipeline stages, deal pipeline stages. Follow-Up Boss has the native deals integration. So everything that we will build today or that I will show you is going to center around this part of Follow-Up Boss, and every user has access to this deals pipeline. So this is something that you can get built in. It creates a visual representation of each of the clients that you have along these stages. You can obviously choose the stages that you want to outline, but this is just like an idea for what the different seller and buyer pipeline stages are that we feel like are that I feel like are pretty universal to, depending on whatever state you're operating in. And then we're going to jump in and look at how we apply checklists, transactional checklists per stage. So when you have a buyer broker all the way through to getting that buyer pending and closed, even a contingent buyer. And then on the seller side, having the ability to go from listing, pre-listing, all the way to active on the MLS, and then to a pending, closed, even a contingent status. So each of those checklists are something that you can build out right here in Follow-Up Boss. And then when you take it a step further, you can also automate to have those checklists apply to different stages in the deal pipeline. So we'll get to that in just a minute. Must-have reminder examples. I was talking about how tasks can remind you in Follow-Up Boss or pop up in your calendar. And that's a pretty critical feature for the way that our team operates and the people who are using this, a build that's similar. I know a lot of people are adding in certain reminders, certain contract timelines. This is just, I can't stress enough how helpful this is, because you obviously have, if you're an agent or a TC, you understand that there's a lot of tasks that need to be taken care of during the, let's just say, a pending buyer process. But there are some that are very time sensitive and very critical, and either you or the agent can't afford to miss those dates. And so making sure that those dates are set up as reminders in your or the agent's calendar is really, really important. So examples of those would be like earnest money or deposits due, inspection deadlines, appraisal deadlines, loan commitment deadlines, final walkthrough, closing. Just a few examples of the reminders that we can set up in Follow Boss. When you do set up those reminders, see if I can make this a bit bigger on the screen, but I'll just show you this live. This is the calendar view inside of Follow Boss, and these are tasks that are all assigned on April 14th. And you can actually view your tasks that are assigned to you that day. You can also get reminders depending on your reminder notifications in Follow Boss. So really some cool features there as far as making sure that you're on top of things. Some examples of some of the email and client communication templates that can be set up. You can create text templates that you send out to clients during different stages of the transaction, like a congrats, your offer is fully accepted type of text, but then also appraisal, scheduled, and email templates that are sort of more transactional along the way. If you're a team leader, an ops manager, an admin on a team, or support, at least an agent, this is really amazing because it creates a lot of continuity in the communication that's going out. So instead of you either just choosing how to draft that email, or you having to go into Gmail and find the correct template and get it sent out, you have the ability to just pull these templates right into the contact record and Follow Boss and get them sent out. But then it also makes sure that the same communication goes out to the same clients at the same stage of each transaction. So things like, reminding buyers about what inspections are common in your area or that you recommend as an agent. Those types of communications can become standardized so that you never miss suggesting to someone that they have, for instance, a sewer scope or a specific type of inspection that's super important to make sure that you're representing them appropriately as the agent in their transaction. So we are going to jump in and look at some of this stuff live now. Just wanted to give a quick overview. And would anyone, before I jump into that, like to just jump into the chat and give, is there anything specifically that you would like to focus some time on today so that I can make sure that I don't miss it in covering it today? Just go ahead and add that information to the chat if there's anything that you've seen that I've talked about so far that you want to make sure that I don't miss going over. So everything on my screen is, like I said, pertaining to the deals pipeline that can be set up in Follow Boss. So I'm going to jump through some of the things that need to be set up in order to make this function for you. And I would say, like I said, this is probably the number one thing that I would start with if I was to go build this again. And when you're in the owner account for your Follow Boss, you get this little gear icon. And when you click on it, you can actually add different deal pipelines and then name them. So in this particular case, we just have buyer and seller. And then under the buyer and seller pipelines, we have different stages that can be added here. And if you scroll all the way to the right, you can add a stage. So for instance, like in Canada, you all have a little bit different timelines than we do here in the US. And since this is a conditional stage for Canada, you could apply a completely separate checklist to a transaction when it was conditional versus when it just goes pending. So the standardized deal pipeline stages that I would suggest. We always use attempt start, and that's just a place to put that deal card while you're entering it into the system and getting the information filled out. And then from there, you would move it along to whatever it is. So a pending transaction in this case is where you would move this deal card over to. You can also create a pipeline for buyer broker. That has been a great tool since the NAR settlement for a lot of teams or agents who are keeping track of when those buyer brokers expire. You know, you can put in there that you signed one with Jim and Joanne and they expire on a certain date, and then set yourself a reminder to renew that buyer broker if by chance you get towards the end of that time frame. So then the rest of the stages are pretty common across states and in real estate in general in the US, pending, closed, and then we do have a pipeline for canceled. So getting those pipelines set up, and then going over and entering in your deals, which basically just hit the new button. And then my best practice, I like to put in the address here, and then the basic information. And then you're just gonna hit create deal. You can associate the person in Follow Up Boss who is under contract on the deal, and then whichever team members are involved on your team. Usually that's the agent who wrote the contract. So that's kind of an overview of the deals section. Like I said, that's really going to be sort of the first step that you take when you go in to create all of this. The next step would be to create your checklist. So when you are managing a transaction, I would imagine that most of you have a checklist that you work off of, a spreadsheet. Maybe it's just like a Word document that has each of the steps that you manage in a transaction. So in Follow Up Boss, the equivalent of that is going to be called an action plan. And so in order to create your action plan, you're going to go here to action plans, and you're going to name this buyer action plan, or let's call it buyer pending action plan. And then you're going to go in here and just start naming each of the tasks that you do. So, you know, you might send an opening intro email. You probably have broker management system you need to update. Whatever those tasks are, you're going to list them all out. The order that you type them in would be the same order that they were in your checklist, and that's how they'll populate in Follow Up Boss. And then the task itself, you can edit the action that happens. So most of these are just going to be tasks that you're going to check off when they pertain to the client who's gone under contract, a pending buyer. But then you can also edit the task type. So for instance, you could decide if you wanted to categorize these tasks. That's kind of useful for the task view part of Follow Up Boss because you can sort them a bit. But unfortunately, they don't give you many options here, and there's not a ton of customization that can be done here. Actually, there's no customization that can be done here. But if you wanted to, you could categorize your tasks. They're still going to just stay in this list of tasks, but you can put them in different categories, and that helps for viewing them and completing them when we get to that step. The other thing that you can do is assign this task to someone within your Follow Up Boss. And every time that you start this action plan or checklist on any client, they're always going to get assigned to that task. So if you're an agent that has a TC, you can assign a task to the TC. So then every single time you use that checklist, the TC will get assigned to that task. If you yourself, the agent who is assigned to the contact, needs to take care of some things, maybe you're a solo agent, you would assign all the tasks to yourself. So agent assigned to the contact is how you would leave that, and that's what it shows up as default. So you would then get all of your different checklists in here added. So you'd have buyer pending, you'd have buyer closed, you'd have, if you take listings, then you would have the pre-listing checklist, the active on MLS checklist, pending listing checklist. There's a list of those that I provided earlier, and slides that we're looking at today will go out to you after the call. So you'll have an idea of how to set up those different deal pipelines and then the corresponding checklist or action plan. But I would imagine that all of you probably have a pretty good checklist that you work off of. So this would be the area to come in and create it. So after that, you're going to hit save. And now you've got your buyer pending action plan saved in your follow-up boss. The next thing that you're going to want to do is work on communication templates. So like I said, you can create a text template, you can create an email template, and then you can set up tasks in the previous step to send those templates. So for instance, if you, in that first task that I set up, you're going to send a pending buyer intro email. You can then go in here and type out the subject that you would like to pop up. So on our team, we like to put the property address in each of the emails that we send out, and that just helps everybody keep everything straight. So if you see here on the right-hand side, there's something called merge fields. Merge fields is actually going to pull in fields from follow-up boss into the email template itself and always merge them in. If there's anybody in here who used to use or still does use Microsoft Word and merge fields to create mailing address labels, it's basically the same type of concept. And once you put those merge fields in the template, they're going to bring information in from follow-up boss every single time that you send this template. So right now I'm just going to say congrats on being on, let's say, your accepted offer. I'll come back here and add the address in just a minute because we have a couple things we need to do on that first. So then you just write out the email here, and you can even copy and paste your Gmail template in. You're going to hit save. Make sure you save it with everyone, all kinds of folders and organization that you there. So hit save. Now here's where I think that there's a lot of magic and a lot of time saving in creating this type of a system in Follow-Up Boss. You go into admin and then you go over to custom fields. You do have to be you'd have to be logged in as the owner account. You can add any custom field that you would like that you want to keep track of on your transactions. So in this case, I've already done this for this demo. And this is all the pending buyer information that I want to keep track of. I want to know the address, broker compensation, broker comp from seller, property type, fully executed contract date, contract price, initial deposit, second deposit. So you can go on and on and on here with whatever fields that you want to track. I wouldn't recommend going overkill on the number of fields here unless there's a few different criteria. If you ever want to pull a report on any of these fields, like if you ever wanted to sort all your transactions by close date, that's a reason to create a custom field. The second reason to create a custom field is if it's information that you find yourself having to type more than, I would say, 2 times in a transaction process, like for instance, the close date of a property. That's something that needs to be shared with the buyer, needs to be shared with the lender, needs to be shared with escrow title attorney. Oftentimes reminders of that close date are really nice to have. So keeping track of any data that you find yourself referencing or repeating back to any stakeholder in the transaction would be worthy of a custom field. So that's how you create the custom fields. Once you get them all created, you can go back over to your template and we'll go back to that pending buyer intro. And now I can say here, congrats on your accepted offer on, and I can find the custom field that I created for the buyer address. Give me a second here because Follow-Up Boss doesn't really categorize these for some reason in alphabetical or really any order. Congrats on your accepted offer on, and then this is going to fill in the property address. So 1234 Sample Drive or whatever the property is. So then you've got your email template drafted out here. I'm actually going to fill this in now. I'm going to say hello. And then I'm going to pull in the merge field for contact first name because this is going to go to my client. Congrats on your accepted offer. I am thrilled to be working for you. Or if you're a TC, this is a great time to introduce yourself. You'll be assisting so-and-so in the transaction. So then important dates might be the topic for this email. And here you can go in and whatever custom fields you've created for the different dates that are important in this transaction, the close date, the contingency due date, the inspection period in date, the, any information that you want to store in Follow Boss, you can pull it in here as custom fields. So once you get this all set up and you're working with the client, you can pull this email template into the contact record and all of that information that you filled in just one time to the client's record, populate that email template. So it's a pretty amazing time saver once you get it all set up. So I'm going to hit save here, and then I'll show you, if we go over to a sample buyer here, and we've got an address filled in, but I'm going to do the contract close date. And I can't remember what the other date was that I pulled in there, but then I'm going to find that buyer intro. And when I pull in this email template now, you can see that it filled in 123 Main Street, and it filled in the important date. I guess what I could have added to my template is close date before I put that merge field in, but it pulled in the close date that was filled in there. And you can see how you could use a template like this to pull in some additional data and really have some great time-saving opportunities. Also, this is an example how when you create those action plans that we looked at a few screens ago, this is how those transaction tasks can apply to the contact. So you can actually go in and apply this action plan to a pending buyer, let's just say. And then each of those tasks that you had set up under action plans is going to show here on the right-hand side as tasks that are associated with that buyer who's now under contract. So when you go in here and you look at the tasks, they're assigned to whoever you assign them to in the global settings, in the admin settings. And you can also go in and set some specific reminders. Follow Boss doesn't allow us to edit these reminders in the admin settings as far as like on the 8th day of contract, this reminder is going to happen. So you would want to make yourself a note, for instance, in the admin settings that there is a specific task that you wanted to set a date for once the buyer goes under contract. At least in our team, every contract's a little bit different. Our inspection period can be moved around. Obviously, our close date moves around. Loan contingency dates moved around based on, acceptance date and things like that. So we don't standardize any of that. When a TC opens a file on our team, they go in and set up whatever the few reminders are that are critical tasks that the agent needs to be aware of. Most other tasks are just basically in sequential order based on how they need to be completed. So if there's a bunch of email templates to go out, those email templates might go out, in the beginning of the transaction to escrow title attorney, to the buyer with a copy of the purchase contract, to the lender with a intro of the TC, things like that. So those will be some of the beginning tasks. And then as you get down to tasks that might have something time sensitive, like a deposit, the TC would go in and edit that task and say, okay, well, the deposit is due 3 business days after the contract date, which was March 27th. So I'm going to say March 31st, and I want to be reminded to check and see that we've received it at 8 a.m. And I'm going to make that 10 minutes before 8 a.m. that it reminds me. So there is the ability to edit any task and have this level of reminders for that task. So that is like a really high level overview of the nuts and bolts of what it takes to build this in Follow Up Boss. Going back to where I started, which is the deals pipeline, every time you get one of your new transactions or listings added to the deals section, it really does help you with that visual pipeline that I was talking about, where there's almost like reporting on what the deals are, what their value is, and how many of them are in each of these stages. So if you've got a bunch of listings that are signed, but they're not on the MLS yet, you can see you have 8 of those worth $3 million. So getting those on the market is super important. Active on MLS, you're dealing with 4 that are valued at 1.9 in this example. Pending 9 deals, 1.9. You can sort this report also by the user in the system. So if you wanted to know what a certain agent has listed, pended, or closed, you can also see that information. So that is like I said, a pretty quick overview of how the transaction management tools or features or setup is going to flow in Follow Up Boss. I'm going to open up the chat now and check on some of the questions that you all have added. And it looks like, just going back to what you guys are all using, there is a mixture of zip forms, checklists, and Trello. For whoever's using Trello, I've gotten a lot of comments that this looks or functions a lot like Trello. The big benefit or takeaway is just having all those email templates and checklists inside of Follow Up Boss. You still get this nice visual view here, but you're not having to go in and out of a different system and then sending transaction emails in just right here in Follow Up Boss is also a big benefit. OTC, I know that there's that's a popular transaction coordination system out there, and sometimes the team size or the complexity of your checklist might warrant something like that. So this is definitely, I would say, a bit of a simpler solution, but it was crafted that way to have a little less automation and a little bit more, the time saving steps are all still there, but there's a little bit less of that automation and dependencies built in the sense that people have said that they feel like it's just a little easier to navigate. Folio and spreadsheets in Google Workspace. We were pretty much doing the same thing when we switched over to this system, and it was really a game changer. As far as receive the recording after the call, I believe so. Elena was supposed to be from Key Technology, was supposed to be hosting with me today. She's unfortunately sick today, but I will get with her and facilitate getting you the slides, and then I believe she is sending out the recording. Sorry about the question about how much notes to take. Hopefully you are able to get some good stuff out of the call and then get a rewatch. Is there a template for an REO transaction? So as far as a template for the REO transaction, in the library in Follow Up Boss action plans, you might be able to find one. So if you go to action plans and then you type in browse action library, you might be able to comb through those and see if you can find something for REO. If you do REOs and you just wanted to add in your transaction checklist, there's obviously the ability to do that. Do we have an agent input the new contract to the TC? No, so our TCs do all the input. into Follow Up Boss. We've tried it a few different ways, but it's too much error if the agent who's on the go and dealing with lots of other things does that data entry. Our TCs prefer to do it themselves. Adding campaigns. So they're called action plans or checklists. Checklists are called action plans in Follow Up Boss. And if we go in here and look, you can create an action plan, which we did a few steps ago. And then when you go in here down to action plans, you can add that action plan by the buyer pending or pending buyer. What did we call that? Well, I can't remember exactly what I called it, but you could select the action plan that you saved, and then you can apply that to that transaction. So for instance, if you had a few different pipelines or checklists that you wanted to manage in Follow Up Boss, and you were to create those, then you could apply whatever one pertained to that client via those steps. Maybe missed this, but can we add automations based on custom fields? Close week reminder email based on 7 days prior to custom field close date? Or is there a reason not to be doing something like this? So yes, you absolutely can do that. And I would say that if your transactions are that finite that you know that they're going to close, I guess we don't have a lot of those types of automatic emails or automations. We might task a TC or an agent to review the transaction to decide if it's okay to send the 7 day prior to close email, but there's just so many variables in real estate transactions. So we just don't have a ton of that automation built in. We would have an automation that would create that task and then a corresponding template to send out that email for the close week reminder, but we wouldn't automatically send it just in case that morning there was news from the lender that there would need to be a 2-week extension or some other thing happened. So we really try to keep that decision to send that email that's like fully templated and pretty much ready to go in the hands of the agent or the TC so that they can make the call that that is still a timely update to send. I hope that makes sense, Corey. Somebody had raised their hand and I can't tell who it was. Does anyone have a question, or could you raise your hand again? And I see a couple of other questions here that I had missed. Is it possible to program tasks for contingencies, I think is the question. Absolutely. So the way I would do that is to create an action plan and then have your contingent tasks. And then you can either, I didn't cover automations just because that's a whole another ball of wax. But if you know Follow Up Boss automations, you could create an automation that is tag based. So when you apply the tag contingency, you could start a list of contingency tasks. You could also just apply it manually the way that I just showed in the previous answer to that question. What types of custom fields do you have for deals specifically? I noticed they are separate from the lead custom fields. So deal custom fields are a whole other ball of wax in that they are super useful on the deal card themselves. I'll show you what those look like again. But the reason why they aren't used at a super high level in the way that I have built out Follow Up Boss is because they can't be pulled into any smart list. So you really can't get any reporting on them, and they can't be pulled into email templates. So the system that we use is based on contact custom fields, not deal custom fields. So if there's something specifically that you want to track on a deal, that makes a lot of sense to stay attached with the deal, but it doesn't need to be reported on, or it doesn't need to be pulled into an email template as a custom field or a merge field, then that it would be a good example of something to put on a deal card. So hopefully that helps your question, Angela. Anybody else have any other questions? I'm going to move along here. So just to overview the benefits, this system, when you build it the way that I've just described, you can scale it to hundreds of transactions and dozens of agents. So as long as the agent is a user in your Follow-Up Boss and has an agent role, all the features that I showed you work. It also works for one agent. So I've helped, just a single solo who does their own transactions, an agent that has a virtual assistant or an admin working with them to help them move transactions along, and then all the way up to teams with dozens of agents who are doing hundreds of transactions. So it's really quite scalable once built properly. And admins and agents who are using a Follow-Up Boss build that's similar to this report saving hours on every transaction, just because, again, the data entry is much lighter and they know exactly what to do when. And there's a lot of ways you can view tasks and things like that, where you can see all your tasks in one place instead of being deal specific. So there's just a lot of ways to save time. And then dropping multiple monthly expenses. Like, I know a lot of teams or agents are using lots of different software just to do our jobs. We have to be in and out of so many different softwares. So to be able to drop your transaction management costs, it's a really nice benefit. Communication becomes uniform and pretty scripted, which is a really nice thing, especially when you're dealing with contract language and reminders that you want to give clients, and making sure that you have a very documented transaction process that helps guide them in the most succinct way. And then communication mistakes, if you're not retyping and typing, the number of typos and all of that goes way down. So today, hopefully everybody got their questions answered. I think we're just a little bit over time, so I'll wrap up here. Do we communicate with lenders, title, escrow, cooperating agents through emails that go out in FAB? Yes, so all of those contacts would be added to Follow-Up Boss. So we would put the lender in Follow-Up Boss. We create a pond to put those types of people in. So lenders, title, escrow, cooperating agents, all of them would be communicated with inside of Follow-Up Boss through them being saved as contacts. So a quick overview here, and just one last thing to leave you with. When I was asked to do a Bosses in Action episode on this Follow-Up Boss way of using Follow-Up Boss, I was pretty much just inundated with people like yourselves who were curious about how to get this all set up. And I have partnered with Key Technology, who has the ability to install this exact workflow on your behalf, if that's something that you're interested in. It's absolutely something you can do yourself, and with what I've just shared with you, it will give you a really nice framework. But if you don't have the time, don't have the energy to figure out how to build all this yourself, we do have an option for you to have a done for you system installed into your Follow-Up Boss by Key Technology. We have an option for solo agents, we have an option for teams. So please definitely we'll send you out a link when the call is over, but if that's something that you're interested in, we can do a free demo call and just show you how it works. And would love to talk to any of you who are looking for help on that. And let's see, the last question. Oh, it looks like someone just made a comment that they'd be interested, and we'll get you guys out the link if you want to set up a call to have some help. Otherwise, I think that hopefully you could get pretty far along with everything that was shown here today. So thanks everyone for your time. Very much looking forward to answering any questions if you have any over email when we get out the information, and we'll talk to you very soon. Thank you.